Good afternoon. This is another installment of Conversations with Willie. My guest is LuLu Kelly, who works for the Department of Agriculture and has a long history of gardening and working with the soil. Welcome, LuLu.
Thank you, Will. I'm so glad to talk to you today, and I'm very interested in what you're talking about. And so I hope I can shed some light on you, and I hope you can shed some light on me.
That'd be great. Tell us a little about your background, what you've done for work, etc.
Number one, I think I'll go by saying that originally, when I started working in the soil, my name was Lou. Everyone called me Lou. And then as I learned that story was so important, I decided to change my name to Lulu. So, and it was a lot more fun, and it became a new story for me. So Lulu is my soil, and when I got attached to the earth, and I think it's and I've been working in this industry. I was a production manager for many years for Navales. I worked in sales around the Bay Area, Sebastopol growers, different things like that. So I have a broad background, and now I work as a bug trapper for the Department of Agriculture.
Interesting. We were talking before the show started, and you wanted to know how I got into permaculture. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, my path to permaculture started with ecology, and then went into my work as a sustainability consultant, and then progressed into permaculture because I thought permaculture is a active spiritual way to work with the soil and have a system to work with the soil and build community. I got tired of the cliches and the competition, frankly, of sustainability, which I think is rather a vague idea these days, or a greenwashed idea. So permaculture for me is just a blooming process. I'm looking at it in all different ways as a mythologist. I'm also going to get my certificate in my certification in permaculture this summer. So it's been just a wonderful place to grow for me, even though I'm not really doing it in the soil per se yet.
So basically, your attachment didn't come from working in the garden and then wanting to learn the techniques of permaculture. It actually came about after you had worked with sustainability and saw that wasn't working. Is that
correct?
What I'm hearing?
Yes, indeed, yes. I would tell you that I'm more of a writer than a permaculturist. I'm more of a theoretical person here. Yeah.
Right. I found that people were very disengaged. My love of gardening came from that people weren't connected to the earth anymore. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any responsibility to it. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand the connection that we have, and that if we didn't manage it properly, we weren't going to get anywhere. So I started with 4-H children, teaching them gardening, and I could see that children that had trouble no longer had trouble after they worked in the soil, because they grew that plant and had success, and then realized they could use those same skills on themselves. And I realized that children don't do gardening anymore. So that was one of the first places I noticed a huge impact. And then the way we ran our garden center was completely opposite of most garden centers. And so that we got rid of chemicals before it was posh to get rid of chemicals. and that was when we started saying, no, we don't need that chemical anymore, people just didn't know what to do. They were flabbergasted that we didn't want to sell them a chemical to kill something. And that they were going to have to learn what bugs were and if they needed them or not. So, it was teaching, and then, it evolved for me. So I went through I evolved through the process.
Yes. I'm interested in what the Department of Agriculture's view of permaculture is.
Well, the department wouldn't have, they don't even look at that kind of as an agricultural subsistency, really.
Why?
I mean, we have traditional because we have what we call traditional farming,
right.
And then we have non-traditional farming, and we have agriculture. Then we have organic farming. So where does permaculture fit into that?
Well, organic farming.
Probably one. Yes, but the organic farmer still doesn't use techniques of permaculture always. I mean, the farmer wastes water a lot. The farmer is not about, it's about production. So it's clearly the best way to get production.
Okay.
Which is, I see permaculture as being slightly different, as being sustainable within a community like Feinhorn was, that kind of small community, growing enough food for the small community. You just don't see that in farm communities with agriculture.
Okay. Interesting. What is the Department of Agriculture's view of GMO?
I don't think they take I haven't seen them take a stand on GMO.
Really? They're not supporting Monsanto?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. We have a lot of diverse crops out here in the Central Valley. Mm-hmm. There's diversity out here. We have all kinds of crops. I don't think we have any GMOs going out here. There may be a little bit of corn with some GMO, which would be BT, probably. But there's not that much GMO out here.
Okay. Very interesting. So do you see permaculture as a revolution in the U.S., or is it just a fringe movement?
I think it could be. I think it could be a huge revolution. I think to have it be a huge revolution, people cannot think of it as the other day we were saying, this is woo-woo or wonky.
Right.
If people, it's not a science, they can't buy into it, especially men. Men cannot buy into something that's a bit woo-woo. If somebody had, like I was telling you about Juana, my production woman, I mean, literally that woman went on what I would call like a pattern for our production. She used certain particular pattern to do the way our production went. Most people would have had a fit with that, and in any big ag production, she just wouldn't have been head production person. She didn't have all the schedules. She didn't have she did it on gut feeling, strictly gut feeling.
Is that part of a permaculture, or is that something else? Is that gut feeling useful tool in permaculture, you think? Or is permaculture more
I think it is.
rational?
I think, well, I think that I think permaculture started on a gut reaction. You know, I think people said, well, this placement right here would be good because of this reason. And so that was the gut reaction. Whether it was right or wrong in the beginning, I think there was a lot of gut reaction. You know, we know that this, ideally this will make this plant grow better, but I think there was a lot of gut intuitiveness about stuff.
When you talked in LinkedIn about the sacred parts of soil life, what did you mean, sacred parts of soil life?
Well, I think that soil is the number one thing that makes or breaks a garden and makes and breaks how things live. And if we don't have what we need in the soil, now some plants need less than others, but knowing that we can utilize other types of soil. But most plants need that sacred kind of, you can smell soil and know that it will grow something. And when it's been depleted, we just don't ever think about why we're depleting something. You know, people used to leave fields feral, or plow them under, or leave them to get nutrients back in them. We don't do that anymore. You know, we use it until it's all up, and then maybe we'll come back to it in a few years.
Very good. Gotcha.
We switch from beans to corn. You know, we go from beans to corn. We put nitrogen back in, we deplete it, and then, you know what I mean? But we don't think about the soil. And the soil is so important. It's alive. That soil is alive. It has micronutrients, microorganisms. It has so much going on in it that the average person doesn't realize.
Very good. LuLu, your video has frozen, but your audio still works fine. What's your audio doing? Can you check that for me?
Sure. Let me see.
Let's see. It looks like it's coming in. Let's see. Oh, there you are. Good.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's a good way to go. LuLu, tell me what type of symbols do you think of when you think of permaculture? When you talk about the narrative, the story, what are the symbols of that story now?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Good.
I really hadn't thought of symbols. Do you have symbols that you think of in permaculture?
Well, you mentioned soil. I think that's a primary symbol. I think there are some tools that might be symbols of the technical side of digging in the earth or harvesting. Might be a basket. Might be a compost pile. I'm trying to figure out what the symbols are so we can write new mythologies. That's my question and point there.
Right. So I'm thinking, when I think of permaculture, I think of, I definitely think of the soil. I definitely think of composting. I definitely think of seed. Seed. I
Yes,
also
that's
think
good.
of seed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, one of the reasons is because I like to do my own seed selections. So to see which things come out stronger and hybridize my own kinds of things. So I think seed selections are important. Um, I, I'm trying to think of what else. I also like to think of ways to bring in, so we don't, so that we don't waste water. You know, that we have because water is going to be such an important key here.
It's
To
true.
raise the right plants in the right place so that we don't have to overuse water sources.
Very
Because
good.
eventually that's going to be our biggest problem.
I agree. So
Yeah,
who
I mean
are
the delta,
yeah who are your
go ahead.
heroes? Who are your heroes, Lulu? Who are your heroes these days?
As far as permaculture is,
Yeah, sure.
hmm, you know, one of my favorite, and she's not a permaculturist, is Dr. Janet Caprill.
Mhm.
Janet works out of our office. She's our farm advisor. And she has a very good sense of uh, integrating traditional and organic farming. And I think Janet has a really good sense of uh, what it takes to build community and what it takes to build farming communities. So I'd say Miss Janet Caprill, Dr. Janet Caprill, would have to be my hero.
What about Bill Mollison? What about the guy who started permaculture? Is he a hero now or not?
Uh, I mean, I love everything that people are doing, but you know, I think tagging yourself with a word is, I don't know. I really like some of the things he's done, and I really like the fact that he's teaching people. Um, but permaculture sure has become a tag word to everything, and
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like sustainability.
Yeah.
I was just interviewed for a book that a PhD is writing on connecting people to the earth, and we went through a long list of words, and one of those words was permaculture, and I just feel like it's such a tag word right now
Yeah.
that and the more I learn, the more I like about it, but it's not the way, it's not the only way I garden. It's not the way I always think. It definitely is part of a whole medley of tools that you use in the garden.
Right. Right. Very good. So let's go back to this idea of that permaculture is dominated by men and men's values. How do we get men to understand how do we get men to understand the feminine?
Well, I think that's coming. The younger generation of men in their 30s come out to my ranch and they work on the ranch, and they are not quite the same as my husband who's 63, who says you need a tractor and you got to do it this way. So I think it's all changing over time, but it's how we raise our generations of men to really look down at the soil, really look down at what's going on. And I think it's, really, it's up to us to make that happen. It's up to us to teach people how to make the next story.
You're right, exactly. Well, tell me about your idea of alchemy, and tell me if you use alchemy or you understand different types of alchemy in terms of permaculture.
You know, I never thought about that word until you used that word, and I was thinking, wow, that's kind of an interesting thought. Um, as you know, plants are one of the only things that will uptake things from the soil and actually change it, you know. And so if they need something, they can actually take it up and change it. Everyone, you know, when you go to school, everyone reads the plant life of the life of a plant or whatever it is. We all read that. I mean, I probably read that when I was in my 20s. And everyone realizes, oh wow, plants are really cool. They do this thing where they can, you know, change the chemistry of the soil and take what they need, leave what they don't. I studied water rings on trees one time because trees will actually pick up water from the soil and in really hot places and then let it loose in the middle of the night. And they're called water rings. And we didn't know why they were doing it, but it was to hydrate themselves on a hot day where there wasn't any water. So, you know, there's all these like things that you don't even really think about that are alchemy, you know. That's, when you use that word, I thought, that's really funny. What do you think of the use of the word alchemy?
Well,
I mean,
in
that's
part of
kind of a...
yeah, I have like 6 or 7 types of alchemy that I've developed. Okay,
Okay.
and I have them. One is called Imaginative, which is in our brains, the creativity. The next one is Eco, that would be soil and seeds, plants. Shamanic alchemy is the alchemy of the shaman and his transformations, or her transformations. I've also identified sound and sonic alchemy. That's more electronic. There's something called digital alchemy, which is computers. Then I have 2 more. One is community alchemy, and one is earth alchemy. So I'm hoping to have these alchemies help us write new stories. I'm hoping to turn people on to something new so they can get something past the traditional churches and the traditional mindset. We need new tools to get over this hurdle. So I'm trying to get the tools for people to write with.
Well, interesting. That's
I
very
think
interesting.
I think you're looking. I think you're an alchemist.
I probably am. Well, I do. You know what's really interesting is, and in Chinese medicine, I don't know if you know this, you probably do. In Chinese medicine, the herbalist actually goes out into the garden. He goes out into the forest, and he looks for the strongest and the most productive of the herbs in its natural setting, because that will heal people because it is strong.
Right.
And if we think about that, that is so something we don't even understand anymore. That we would go out into nature and look for the strongest in the garden to heal. That's pretty interesting. Because we can't even identify that. We can't even look at them and go, you know, the average gardener, before he really can synthesize the garden, can't even tell you which of the plants are the strongest. Now, a seasoned gardener could. A seasoned gardener could walk out there and say, oh, I want to dig that plant up. That one's the strongest. I want that for my garden. But an unseasoned gardener cannot look at 6 plants and say which one is the best. And that's interesting.
Very.
And that's what we need to teach.
Right.
You know.
Huh. Yeah. So, last
And then some
question.
people will pick.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well,
No,
and I think
finish
the
your thought.
thing is, some people will pick the weak plant thinking that they can make it better. Instead of culling it, you know, they'll think, oh, I can make this plant better. I'll just stick with that. Instead of going for the strong plant. Now that's alchemy.
Yeah, right. Interesting. So, Lulu, tell me what your local community is going to look like in 2050.
Well, if my garden has anything to do with it, we'll have better gardeners. I really like. I'm working on. I'm working on trying to get my garden to a certain stage so I can teach more people
Good.
how to do that. How to do that. Because there's a lack of knowledge.
Well, tell
I
me
don't think most
about.
people can open up a bag.
Are you going to see more people, less people, drought? Are we going to see different systems? How is this going to work? Gardening is one thing, but there's a lot of change coming, huh?
Yeah, I think you're seeing that in communities right now. Maybe not in your community, but in our community where you have ghost towns actually out here in the Central Valley, where whole communities aren't even here anymore, or people are living in houses that don't belong to them. You're seeing people group together to have different kinds of food sources, and they're definitely taking on projects that they wouldn't have taken on in the past. So you're seeing community people doing things. There's much more fellowship whenever you have this kind of strife. And we certainly have it out here in the Central Valley.
Interesting.
It is. I think it's the worst I've ever seen. You're probably a little bit buffered from that over there in Burlingame.
Yeah, we're in this kind of rich tech sector, so we have jobs and cars and houses. We're kind of in a bubble.
Yeah, you're in a bubble. I mean, for example, where I trap, there's a man that lives in each of the orchards, and he kind of is in the orchard and eats the fruit and kind of migrates around our community in the different orchards as the fruit becomes available. He's been here for probably 6 years, 7 years, and he knows where the fruit is, and sometimes I'll wake him up, and sometimes bring him a coffee, and he's obviously has some mental health issues, and the farmers know he exists, and he's here, and he's living through whatever process he can survive. I'm sure in the wintertime he goes someplace else, but he's out here every spring.
Wow, interesting. That's an interesting
Very
story.
interesting.
That's like a new story for the folklore of permaculture in the New World. That guy, you know?
He just moves. He's migrational in a 20-mile radius. It's great.
Well, Lulu, I have to close out. I really appreciate your time, and I'll post this for you, and it'll share it with everybody. It'll be great. I really thank you. It's been good.
No, thank you. Yeah. Have a good day.
I'll see you in LinkedIn, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.